You're listening to The Power Project. I'm your host, Brandy Voth, and it's my goal each week to inspire you to go out and live purpose-filled lives and own your God-given power. Now, before we get into this week's episode, I wanted to read the most recent review from Ardelia08. I just listened to the first 2 episodes and have already walked away with a ton of information to help grow my social media presence. Looking forward to continuing on with the episodes. Thanks so much, girl. We appreciate these reviews. And while sometimes we do offer advice that helps you grow your social media presence, we also bring purposeful business coaching as well as spotlighting women that are living purpose-filled lives. And weeks like this, we tackle subjects that we as women and mothers deal with. So let's jump right in, shall we? Welcome back to The Power Project. I am really excited to discuss this topic with you today, and I think it's one that we can all talk for hours on end about if we really wanted to. And I see people discuss this all the time. You guys, we are talking about raising children, raising contributing members of society, and hopefully not screwing them up too much. So summer is out. My kids are at home. I love summertime with my kids. I love getting to hang out with them. I love getting to travel with them, go on the boat with them, swim with them, and just do life with them. I love lazy mornings when we get up and make breakfast together. I love getting to take them with me on my daily activities and routines. It's just a really good family time for me personally. Now, don't get me wrong. They will inevitably drive me nuts a few times this summer. It's just in the cards. But each summer, it's really great to see them evolve as tiny human beings and grow and how they change. And it makes me really think back over the course of time of raising kids. So I have had a lot of questions about parenting, my parenting techniques, my choices that I make and what I allow and I don't allow in my kids' lives. And I want to preface this with the fact that by no means am I an expert, you guys. I am literally just trying to raise well-rounded, contributing members of society and hopefully not screw them up too much. That is my plan. That is my goal in life. So while I get a lot of questions about this, I also am very careful to come from this in a place of letting you guys know that, y'all, I'm just like the rest of you. I am trying to survive this whole parenting thing. And I think it's really great to be at this point of parenting when I know it is okay to not know it all. I remember being the brand spanking new mom that felt like she had to know everything. And I read all of the books. I read the What to Expect When Expecting and the What to Expect with Toddlers and Strong-Willed Child and all of the books because I thought I can become an expert on this whole parenting thing. And then I will never have a curveball thrown my way because I am a tad bit of a control freak. So I wanted to just make sure I could control the entire parenting realm, which is hilarious, by the way. So if you are that brand new mom, the first thing I want you to know is that you're not going to be able to control anything. And it's never going to go according to plan, ever. So it's crazy because when you're that new mom and you come home and you think you've read all the books and you think you know it all, you get home and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm responsible for this child for the rest of their life. And that whole unknown sense of, oh, I don't think I know everything I need to know. I think I'm not equipped. And then you turn into the toddler mom where that sweet baby of yours that you've figured out mostly now has an attitude and a mind of their own and some stubborn defiance. And you think, oh my gosh, I don't know how to parent a toddler. And then you get to that nice stage, the sweet spot, I like to call it, the age of like 7 to 11. And it's just a fun stage. The kids have become independent beings mostly. They can wipe their own rear. They can shower themselves. They can walk on their own 2 feet. So they're not as hands-on, and they've started developing a little bit of their own personality and their own attitude, and they still love you. They haven't gotten to those teenage years where they think you're a total moron. Look at you like you have a horn growing out of the middle of your head. And then you step into the teen years, which is where I am currently standing. And it is the scariest precipice that I've experienced thus far as a parent. I feel like visually, to let you at home like visualize the uncertainty and the anxiety that I feel with what comes with being the parent of a teen. Imagine standing on a cliff, and below you, far below you, there is this tumultuous ocean, and there's jagged rocks standing up out of the ocean everywhere you look, and the sky is dark, and the ocean is churning and brooding, and there's sharks in the ocean circling, and you're standing on this precipice. That is what I feel like as the parent of a teen right now, because you guys, it is the scariest time to be raising kids and raising teens. In all honesty, I feel like most generations think that, but really, you guys, just the resources and the temptations that our kids have at their fingertips that we could never have even imagined as a teen is so scary. It's a hard time for teens. It's a hard time for parents of teens. There is just so much accessibility to anything they possibly could imagine. So my hope for this episode is to just provide you guys with a little encouragement, because I believe that it takes a village. So while I'm not an expert, I am happy to offer what has worked for us thus far. I am well aware of the fact that we have the scariest times of raising children in the next 5 years ahead of us. But right now, up until this point, these are some things that I've done that have worked for me, that have resulted in people complimenting my kids on their behaviors and their manners and their work ethic. And so I just hope that it can go forth and help you in your walk, and also let you know that you are not alone, sister. We all lay down at the end of the day and our head hits the pillow and we think, golly, I could have done that better. But what I want to point out is the fact that I see a lot of parenting groups where people bash their kids' behavior, but they're not looking for a solution to the problem or even an understanding of the problem at hand. So that is what I would like to come away with today from this episode. So let's go ahead and jump into Parenting 101. This one's going to be for all of you new mamas. This is really simple takeaway advice. And like I said, you can read everything you want. You can prep all you want. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to learn this journey as you go. Your kid is not, your baby is not going to follow all the protocol that you expect. Your baby's not going to sleep when you want them to sleep or eat when you want them to eat. But something that you can rest assured in when you're trying to read books and trying to figure out the unknown, and you're trying to listen or not listen to the advice from everyone that thinks that they get to give you advice about being a parent because you've just had a baby. When you're trying to sort that out and you're inevitably feeling like a failure, because we all were there. Listen, we all were there. We all felt like a failure when we had little babies, when we were in the weeds. You're going to hear me say the weeds a few times. You're in the weeds. You have a child under the age of 3. You're in the weeds. It gets easier, I promise. Just keep moving ahead. But the one thing I want you to remember is that you were uniquely chosen to be that baby's mama. So you are the expert in that house. Not your mom, not your mother-in-law, not your best friend, not Dr. Spock, not anybody else. You're the expert of your baby. So when you're thinking about breastfeeding versus bottle feeding, do what works for you and your baby. Co-sleeping versus sleep training. Do what works for you and your baby. A feeding schedule, staying at home, going back to work. Do what works in your household. You're going to be just fine. Your baby's going to be just fine. and listen to your baby, because they will tell you when they're hungry, they'll tell you when they're tired, and you're the expert. So there you go. That's my first piece of advice to you as a new mom. You're not going to know everything, and that's okay. You're perfectly fine. You know exactly what God wants you to know to raise that baby. So then I want to talk to you a little about like growing as a parent, as your kid has moved from the baby years, from the toddler years into the kid stages, because this is where a lot of pressure is placed on parents at this point. And I feel like the pressure to have your kids involved in every activity under the sun is a major problem in our society. It's okay to limit your child's activities. It's okay for you to say what they will and won't do. And you need to remember that they joined your life. You didn't join theirs. And this even goes back to when they're a baby and a toddler. If you're letting your kids keep you from going out to a restaurant because you're afraid your baby's going to cry while you're at the restaurant, girl, take the baby to the restaurant. Then they will become accustomed to being in public around other people, and they will be more socially adjusted human beings if you get them out, get them socialized, get them around people. The same goes for limiting their activities. They've joined your life, so you do not have to be a slave to every single baseball team, soccer team, football team, ballet recital, dance competition, cheerleading. It's okay. It's okay to limit it and do what you think works for your family. There is no cookie cutter option. If you are a family that absolutely loves baseball and wants to spend every waking moment on the baseball field, congrats. Like, you do you, go do it. But if you're a family that really enjoys family time within your home, then limit what your kid has going on and stand firm in that conviction. Do not let other people pressure you into conforming to what fits for their children. Do what works for your own family and your own lifestyle. So we personally have a no sports during the summer rule. And that's because we love summer. We love spending family time together and boating and traveling and swimming and having fun. So we don't do sports during the winter or summer. We don't do sports during the summer. That's just our rule. We stand firm in the conviction. Another thing I want you to know as your kids are growing and turning into their own human beings and figuring life out is this whole motto that I live by, which is the let them bleed motto. Now, before you freak out, no, I'm not putting my kids in danger, but I do let my kids learn things on their own and struggle on their own and bang a knee and scuff a foot, and it's okay. We just have always let them kind of like chart their own journeys. If they want to go hiking and they're going to get hurt hiking, well, that's something that they have to do. We don't always rush to their rescue, and we let them kind of solve their own problems and fight through some struggles, because that teaches them independence as well as overcoming adversity and also rebounding. So that's our let them bleed motto. Regardless of whatever stage you're at on this roller coaster of parenting, one thing is always true, and that is that you need something of your very own. You are more than a wife and a mom. Who were you before you had these kids? And what are you doing today that is something that you can call uniquely yours? Well, if you're looking for an opportunity, hop over to the-powerproject.com/powerfulbusiness. Check out my story and then let's chat. I also find it to be crucial to being present. And you guys, I am as guilty as the next person about being disengaged. I'm as guilty as the next person about getting distracted on my phone. I'm as guilty as the next person about getting on my computer and not paying attention. But being present in the moment with your kids, when that is your devoted time to your kids, is so important. Your kids need to know that you value your time with them. And in turn, you're teaching them to value their time with others. So if you are with the kids, doing an activity with the kids, be with the kids and do the activity with the kids. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I don't do some work and email from the sidelines of a baseball game. That's okay. But I don't do it when my kid's batting or when he's pitching or when he's playing a position that I need to pay attention to. But you guys get it. Life is about balance. Try to be present with your kids, fully engaged with them, having conversations with them, not just letting them be over at the wayside. And only say yes to what you actually want to say yes to. So this is going to talk to the whole class mom, room mom, PTA thing. You guys, don't say yes to things that you don't want to be involved with. If that is not something that you are passionate about and you feel like you need to do to support your kid, it's okay to say no. It's okay to limit that. Don't say yes to every single opportunity your kid has. It's okay to say no. It's okay. You don't have to say yes to them all. Also, and I've got a little soapbox I'm going to just kind of step on for a moment. Do not throw your kids a video game, an iPad, a computer, a cell phone, and expect it to raise them or teach them how to interact in society. There's a time and a place for it, you guys. My oldest has a cell phone with limits and parameters on it. My youngest gets access to a video game or an iPad when we're traveling with limits and parameters. But you just can't throw these things at your kids and expect them to learn life lessons and life values. Have them look up out the windows as they drive down the road and take in their scenery and their surroundings. Have them look up at people in restaurants and across tables and see what is going on in life around them. I feel like we're not only letting electronics raise our kids, but we're also teaching them how to completely miss out on the entire world around them. So that is parenting kids. And then now we're going to move into parenting teens. And that is really, honestly, the driving factor behind this episode for me. And it's because I've personally been doing a lot of research about parenting teens because I'm not trying to control it. I've accepted the fact I'm not in control. I have no idea what's going on, but I am committed to learning and being equipped with tools and skills to handle this. Because if you're like me and you have a teen at home that you're parenting right now, you're probably really experiencing some struggles, some trials, some changes. So we're going through it in our house. And it's watching the boy become the man and struggle with all that entails. And I remember being a 13-year-old girl, and I remember being miserable, not knowing why I was miserable and making everyone else around me miserable. So thank you, Jesus, for giving me boys. I do believe they are easier with this transition. But it's also harder because I'm seeing, for instance, my kid that has always been really smart with a lot of common sense, you guys, he's just become a little dingy and he lacks in the common sense department. And so I've been researching whether or not this is a factor that comes along with puberty and with growing and changing. And you guys, it's a real thing. It is an honest to goodness real thing. And this is what I was telling you guys. Instead of just like griping about our teens' behaviors or griping about our kids' behaviors, do some investigation and figure out why they're behaving in the way they're behaving, and then equip yourself with some tools to deal with that. So as a teen goes through puberty, the brain actually changes. So I didn't even realize this. I mean, I knew hormones came into play, but I didn't realize their entire brain starts to change. And I'm not a psychologist. Once again, you guys, this is just coming from me reading. So the different zones, the prefrontal cortex, and all of the parts of the brain, if you are a neurologist or a psychologist or anyone that knows anything about the brain, you'll know what I'm talking about. But as the things change in their brain, your teens are going to become more emotional versus rational. So their emotional part of their brain develops first. So it's kind of like sitting there hanging out on its own while the cognitive and the parts of the brain that deal with rationalization and common sense, they're slower to catch up with that. So this is why they have some mood swings. And this is why they can't necessarily make a decision like they did before, a really nice, clear-cut decision. This is also the first time that your teen starts to really experience fear and anxiety. So this is when they start to become anxious and nervous. And I'm not saying that younger children don't go through this, but this is a common encounter that your children are going to go through as they go through puberty. They become very, very well aware of what others think of them. So while it can take two different trains of thought, so your child can become very aware of their talents, their skills, their abilities, and seem self-absorbed, like the whole world revolves around them. But they also experience the anxiety with that, where they feel like the whole world is watching them and looking at them. So they get this pressure built up on them. Okay. So, and I'm just helping you guys understand this because, like I said, it takes a village, and I have been digging into how to understand this. So the third is that your child has, both boys and girls have increased levels of testosterone through puberty. And one of testosterone's job is to reorganize the brain during puberty. So literally like move around the way the brain works. That is the job, which is why my 13-year-old seems confused most of the time because his brain is not firing the way it has for the last 13 years of his life. It's your brain going from a child's brain to an adult's brain, but it's this bridge between the two. So think of it as a rope bridge. Like, I'm terrified of those swinging suspended bridges that you jump on and it goes up and down. And if the wind blows, it swings. So think of your child's pubescent brain as a suspended bridge between childhood and adulthood. And everything's getting moved around and the bridge is getting bounced up and down. And so they get a little confused and they don't have common sense. But there's a couple of things that I want to point out here. So this is also the time that your kid's brain starts to evolve and they start to really dream about the future, think about the future, and envision themselves in the future. So there's some ways that you can utilize this and help them transition across that bridge a little smoother. And first and foremost, above everything else, this is an age where your kids are going to start seeking acceptance through their peers and not their parents and their family. Their identity is going to start getting wrapped up in their peers versus their parents and their family. That's why they become so super obsessed with the social circle at this time. So I have personally spoken into my teen over and over that his identity is wrapped up in Christ. It is not determined by his academic or athletic achievements. It's not determined by what his friends think of him. It is wrapped up in his creator and who his creator designed him to be. And then secondly, you have to let them know that they are loved and accepted regardless. So this falls under that whole unconditional grace thing. And so when they're feeling the fear and anxiety, along with envisioning themselves in the future and the whole feeling that everyone has their eyes on them, it's really easy for them to fear failure. And it's really easy for them to, if you have a people pleaser, fear disappointing their parents. So we've spent a lot of time speaking into him about how he can never screw up great enough for us to not love him. It is our job to give him parameters, boundaries, rules, regulations, guide him along the path. But inevitably, it is on his shoulders to make the choices and the decisions. However, regardless of what they turn out to be, he will always be loved. So that is so crucial for your kids to know where their identity lies and that there's unconditional love and grace in your home and that it's okay to fail. It's okay to try and it's okay to fail. So as your kids start to envision this future, there are ways that you can help them to have a growth mindset and help them to not be afraid to try, help them to not fear failure, and help them to really envision themselves down the road. So this is a super easy thing, you guys, because like the brain is a muscle, right? And I feel like you have to exercise it. You have to stretch it. You have to allow it to grow. So while it's getting all rearranged in there by teenage hormones and testosterone, we can encourage them to grow their mindset and have the growth mindset, adopt that mentality. So an activity that we do in our house is just a simple activity, because I don't know if you're like me, but it is like pulling teeth to get my oldest to really communicate how he feels and talk through something. My youngest is more like me, where he's super open to conversations, but my oldest is kind of I don't know. So I've started asking him really specific questions to encourage that growth mindset. And these are some questions you guys can do with your kids. It's kind of fun to just record the answers to them and then ask it again next year. So my goal is 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I want to ask him every year on his birthday these questions. So one is, where do you want to go to college? Do you want to go to college? And if so, where? Why do you want to go to that college? What do you want to study in college? If you could have any job in the world, what would it be? If you could live anywhere, what would it be? Where would that place be? Anywhere in the world, money's not an option. Where would you live? If you'd have any house, what does your future home look like? If money's not an option, describe your home to me. If you have $1 million to support any cause or any charity of your choice, what would you support? Like, what are you passionate about? Do you want to rescue animals? Do you want to help orphans? Do you want to help veterans? Who do you want to support? Who can you help out with that money? What do you hope to be known for in life? Do you want to get married? How many kids do you plan to have? What are their bedrooms going to look like? So these are things that I ask, and I absolutely love the answers I get from this. It's really great. It's a great conversation starter. I'll get the question that, why do I have to answer this again? And I've explained, because I like you to think about your future and envision your future, so that as we're making choices as a teenager, and we're trying to decide what is right, wrong, what's the good course, the bad course, what is going to lead me in the direction of success, what is going to lead me in the direction of failure. I like him to have in his mind a vision of where he's headed and where he's going. So those are some great conversation questions that you can ask your kids. And then I really want to speak to the theory of, and it's not a theory, it's the practice of raising men. So you guys, we all have our boys, right? They're our baby boys, and we love them. And there's just nothing like the love of a baby boy for his mama. And we mamas love those little boys. We want to keep them our babies forever. We want to kiss them and hold them. But your boys are going to become men. And hopefully they'll become husbands and fathers. And they're going to have to learn how to be men. And we as women have a great responsibility to let them go. Okay, we have a great responsibility to cut the apron strings. We have a great responsibility to nudge them in the direction of being men, to push them. So we're at a phase in our family where I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years. I was June Cleaver. I took care of the babies. I took care of all things related to children and in the house. And my husband always told me, when you get them older, send them to me. And so we're at a point now where my kids prefer to be with my husband over me. And that's okay, you guys. That's totally fine. That's actually healthy and the way that God intended it to be, because I can't teach my children how to be a man. I can give them stepping stones and guidance and directions they should go, but I can't teach them how to be a man. Only my husband can teach them how to be a man. So they need to be spending more time with him. They need to be separating a little from me. That doesn't mean they don't love me as much. It doesn't mean our relationship is not great and solid, but they need to be learning to be a man from my husband. So for instance, right now, my husband gave the kids a job that is clearing this hillside that we have at our house. And it is very high brush, is very thick. He gave them a power tool with a cutting blade on the end of it. Don't be alarmed. It's 6 feet away. It's a safety blade. It's supposed to be fine. And rather than hiring a lawn guy to come help us do this, he decided they were old enough. They were of age. They could do this. And I had to step back, because I'm going, It's a steep hillside. They could fall. There are snakes out here. They could get bit by a snake. They could cut themselves with the safety blade. But I had to step back, and him entrusting them with that job and telling them, I'm going to pay you a man's wage to do a man's job, and you're going to learn manual labor that is backbreaking work, has given them this sense of pride. They take great pride in this job. They every day have their hours that they are going to go work. They time it. They take turns. They take their breaks, and they want me to see their progress every day in what they've done. But it wouldn't have been the same if I, as the mom, said, you're too young to do that. You're too small to do that. And I'm going to pay someone else to do it. But my husband got to name them and label them men by giving them that job. So that's important for us. And we as moms have to release that. We have to let that go. We have to say, I've prayed over it and I've given them to God. And another thing that's really important for us as women is we do have to teach our boys how to be gentlemen. Not only do they watch their father and follow in his footsteps, but that whole watch how a man treats his mama, you guys, I was always told that. If a man treats his mom good, he'll treat you good. And we have to teach our sons how to be gentlemen, because somewhere along the way, chivalry started to die. I will not say chivalry is dead, because it's alive and well in my household. But if it matters to you, teach it to your sons. So in our household, it matters that the man opens the door for the woman. So my kids have been taught that from a young age. I have to step back and wait for them to get there and remember it sometimes. But we do that in our house. It's a practice we do. I stand back, I wait, they open the door. They always kiss their mom goodbye and tell her that they love her. Just like my husband does. They line up in the mornings and we get a kiss goodbye and then I love you. So these are things that they need to learn. They need to know that they need to treat the women in their life well, because you're going to want them to treat their wives the way that you want your husband to treat you. So that needs to be taught at home, you guys. So they also need to learn the value of hard work. So we talked about my husband giving them a job. But another thing is we work hard, we play hard in this house. But everyone has a job to make the play happen. So since these kids were little bitty, their job is to clean the boat. We started them at a very young age cleaning the boat, because we take the boat out every weekend. And they became really aware of what people brought on the boat and what was allowed on the boat. They very quickly banned crackers and juicy like watermelon and anything that was goldfish, anything that was going to dissolve into the carpet. They banned red Gatorade. Anything that made their job harder, they banned. So they learned the value of, we go play hard, but we also work hard. We have to clean up our messes after we take the boat out. So that's super important in our household. It's also the core of our family that we have taught them how to attach to purpose and get them involved in serving others and let them be a part of us serving others. We have made it very important to teach them to be kind and advocate for others. And if you see injustices happening, you need to be the voice that steps up and says something about that. And I think it's so crucial, especially with boys and evolving into men, to not only teach them to be able to communicate and embrace their emotions, but also for them to be reminded of their admirable qualities that makes them who they are, the positive leadership traits that they have, the skills and the gifts that God gave them and uniquely them, and the fact that other people look to them as a leader because of these unique characteristics that they are comprised of. So I think that sometimes we have men that didn't hear that as a young child, that have to learn that at an older age. So if you can start your boys out hearing that consistently, it builds them up and helps them step into their leadership role. And the final thing I want to talk about with raising men is that you cannot be afraid to talk about hard subjects with your teens. You can't treat them like they're too young to hear about something. You can't treat them like they're too young to learn about something, because the truth of the matter is, with a cell phone in hand, a Google search bar, and the media, your kids are going to hear about every subject that you are terrified of them hearing about. So you need to have that conversation with them. They need to know they can come to you about anything, talk to you about any subject. No subject is off limits. They're never going to get in trouble for bringing a conversation up, and let them know that you're open to talking about the hard stuff, that you respect them as human beings to discuss that with them. And in turn, they're going to respect you for not trying to hide things from them or sugarcoat things from them. And also, wouldn't you rather your kids learn about the hard subjects from you than some kid on the playground who has no idea what he's talking about? I know I sure would. So those are my tips. Those are my takeaways. I hope that you were able to take something from this episode. I hope that there's one person at home that maybe found some piece of knowledge, wisdom, advice, whatever you want to call it, that helped them at some stage they're in life. And there you go, guys. That's just my little parenting 101 from my heart to yours. Well, there it is, you guys. You asked for it and I gave it to you. I hope that you enjoyed what you heard today. I certainly enjoyed walking through the parenting journey with you. And I have a question to ask. Have you written a review yet? You guys, please do us a favor. If you like what you heard today, hop over and write a review for this podcast. Share it on social media, subscribe so that you never miss an episode, and go tell all of your friends about this show so that we can keep bringing you content each week with new, exciting ideas. And as always, I can't wait to chat with you next week, but until then, go out and live your best purpose-filled lives.